Love the corporate race, but remember one thing: even if you are a rat in the corporate race and you win, you're still a rat. And that was a
Hmm.
big epiphany because I actually realized that we are all doing the grind, we're all doing the hustle. What differentiates us from other animals is the fact that we have a higher level of consciousness, right? So the question
Yeah.
is, what gives us joy? What gives us pleasure? Those are areas that we need to figure out a place to stay in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Have I told you it's your favorite time of the week? I tell you that every week because it's true. Welcome, it's Leaders Talk. I am, as always, your host, Andrew Dupy, Chief of Communications here at Leaders Brands. And today I have with me a very, very special guest, my friend Deepak Bhootra. So let me tell you a little bit about Deepak before we kind of dive in. Dr. Deepak Bhootra is the Chief Executive Officer of Jabalani Consulting LLC. With over 3 decades of experience in diverse business roles, Deepak has honed a strong focus on business development, organizational growth, and with his high energy, action oriented approach, has been very successful. As the leader of Jalabani Consulting, Deepak Bhootra brings a unique approach to sales and leadership development. He combines joy and effectiveness to drive business success. And with his credentials as certified coach and expertise in business transformation, he empowers business owner and sales leaders to achieve predictable and fulfilling outcomes. He helps them unlock their full potential, drive sustainable growth, gives insightful sessions, and he shares his career journey with the growth of his business with us here today. It's it's a great CV to begin with, Deepak. But let's introduce yourself to our audience and just tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah. So when I hear all that, Andrew, the first thing that comes to mind is, wow, sounds like an awesome dude. I better go get him as a coach. He sounds much better than I really am. So thanks for that, Andrew. Quite a lot going on there, but you're right. So who am I as a person? Very simple. I think of myself as a global citizen. I've lived across the world. I've lived in Libya for 3 years. I've lived in South Africa for 15 years. I carry a South African passport. So when people ask me what is home, I actually get confused. I'm one of those few people that will be very confused. Now, home for me is where my bones will be rested, and that's back in India, in a small
Right.
town in the north. And I actually love that place so much, Andrew, that I just wrote my first fiction book about it as well. And I am
Okay.
having the time of my life becoming an entrepreneur, helping people be better at what they do is core to my philosophy. I love it. When I talk about joy, I name Jabulani because, I mean, you mentioned it, and I just want to reemphasize Jabulani is a Zulu word. It means joy, it means
Yeah.
rejoice. And that's exactly the feeling I want to leave with the audience for this podcast. So that's my commitment to you, Andrew. If at the end of 40, 20, 30 minutes, you feel that you didn't get your money's worth, I'll send you a check for $500. Okay.
Well, I think you're going to get their money's worth because you and I have already had a lot of interaction before this. And I will say, absolutely, every single time I talk to you, there is a lot of joy that's in the room. You bring it to the table.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes, sir.
what's important about joy? I mean, why is that such a central point for you?
I look at it this way. We have been given an opportunity to choose our emotions, and we tend to choose emotions that either make us sad, we are quick to complain, and that's just human nature, right? If you
Yeah.
have great service, you tell only one person, but when you get bad service, you go tell five people. Now, can you imagine the destructive nature of that
Yeah.
behavior? I think it requires a lot of people to think differently. And today, in this social media world, and the fact that we're all living this fast-paced life, and as my ex-boss used to say, Deepak, I love the way you work. You love the race, but remember one thing: even if you are a rat in the corporate race and you win, you're still a rat. And that was a
Hmm.
big epiphany because I actually realized that we are all doing the grind, we're all doing the hustle. What differentiates us from other animals is the fact that we have a higher level of consciousness, right? So the question
Yeah.
is, what gives us joy? What gives us pleasure? Those are areas that need to figure out a place to stay in. How do you stay there? You need to figure out how to eliminate the noise. Now, along the way in my journey, I realized that joy is elusive. And joy is something that you need to actively look for. And when you find it, you're going to lose it. Be ready for that. So you need to sustain that energy to keep finding that joy. And the joy that I found, which gave me some purpose, was the fact that thanks to COVID, I actually saw and felt myself going through the most spectacular reengineering that I had never felt I needed. I was doing differently at work. I was feeling disjointed. I'm a social animal, and I just felt something is not ticking here. I actually went for external support and help, and I was surprised. I was even more surprised. So my interest in mental health suddenly rocked up because I realized that I am not being joyful, and I'm going to connect the dots back to you as to what I wrote and why we're having this conversation. And that was something that really blew my mind. That here I am, a senior exec who has made his fortune. I'm at that point, I was 50 years old. I was at a point where I was seriously considering, when do you want to retire? You've done what you need to do. What do you want to do rest next? And it's that discovery that actually made me realize that there was an opportunity for me to find a different purpose, to spread this joy to other people in the right context. And that context was, hey, Mr. Young Professional or Mr. Hard Working Professional, you are burning the candle at both ends. This is going to lead to huge issues for you. And when you're young and when you don't think about it, you have the energy to drive through that. But as you get into your midlife and as you look at the world around you, you start looking at things differently. When I was younger, I was aggressive. Now I'm assertive. And there's a huge difference between that, right, Andrew? Now, when you're
Yes,
assertive, you actually
yeah,
have slowed down.
massive.
Massive. You slow down. And when you slow down, you start looking at the world in a different view. And with two kids that are brought onto the planet, suddenly you realize you're a role model as well. So that's it. And that's my genesis, is that I had a episode where I had family loss. I lost my brother-in-law. For me, that was a pivotal moment. You actually realize the fragility of life, and I have a choice. The choice is that I mourn him or I celebrate him. And the choice I made was that I like to celebrate. I like to celebrate those memories. I like to think about the time I spent with him were really fantastic or fun. And that was the biggest driver for the way I've been acting or behaving in the last couple of years. And
Yeah,
also the reason why I left the corporate world, because I'm not saying I have lost my ambition, but I want to build that ambition and that purpose differently. Those metrics for success are going to be very different this time. And one of those metrics is mental health, not just of mine, but of the people that I work with and the people that I support with the work that I do.
yeah.
Andrew, mouthful there. Back to you, sir.
Oh no. I mean, honestly, I was enraptured. My audience can even they know I'm usually a little engaging as we go. I was just listening because that resonates so much with me. I've had the exact same experiences. And you're right. You can burn through lack of joy when you're young because there's the energy. But when you start to get into your middle age, it starts to become something that you're missing.
And yes,
And the thing
absolutely.
is that we don't emphasize it enough. You're absolutely right. And the American business culture, I mean, even the international business culture, I would think. I know there's a little bit of difference in some places in Europe where they're trying to push a little bit more of a joy-based culture in that. But you know, in the American business culture, joy and emotions like that are considered in some places to be a weakness. And I think that is extremely damaging to the structure of everything from team building down to just your company's moral North Star. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you see that are issues that need to be addressed that are out there right now?
Uh, let's look at it this way. That's a very broad question. Issue number one,
Very broad. Yeah.
I'm focused on mental health, right? And
Right.
my
Let's
chapter,
narrow down there.
yeah,
Yeah.
so my chapter in the book was absolutely focused on one simple reality, Andrew, which is that mental health from a leadership point of view is important.
Yes.
People that become leaders are cut from a different cloth. I don't want to get into the debate on nature versus nurture, right? But these
Right.
individuals are exceptional. I would argue that they are leaders because of the way that they operate and because of the resilience that they have built into them. And because of that resilience, these are individuals that have actually developed a way to work and a way to thrive. These are also individuals that most likely look 80 in the 80s and 90s, the way that you operated as a manager was very different. You said a lot of stuff and you got away with it. Today,
Yes.
you have to be extremely careful in what you say, what you talk, and how you behave and interact. There's an element of vulnerability. Leadership today is not being a manager. Leadership is about why should people follow you? And it's changed the context. When people ask me what's the definition of leadership, I actually say it's followership. People who follow you will define you as a leader. It's not you banging the drum. I'm a leader because I do this, I do this. It's because people listen to what you say and actually are awesome followers, and then they do what you tell them to do. That makes you a leader. So what happens with these leaders is that they burn the candle at both ends. We've discussed this, and now they suddenly find themselves struggling and they don't know it. And they're also not going to admit to it. And do you know why, Andrew, they don't admit to it? Because one, it is a chink in your armor. Why? And I come from a sales business development background. Can you imagine a salesperson who's ever going to admit that he is struggling making his quota? Because that's what
They never
defines him.
admit no.
It
Yeah.
defines him. They are the ones that will drive the flashy car, make all the money because they work their asses off in a very different context. My apologies for bad language. I hope you won't edit it out, or
Oh
you have
no,
to edit.
we're yeah.
Yeah.
We're
But the
still
point
well
is,
under we're well under the
they
filters.
they work hard, and my stance was as follows. I came into work one day where I had an interaction with one of my employees, which blew my mind. I was completely confused as to what they were babbling on about because they were accusing me of having created this conspiracy and the type of things I was doing to them and that I was looking to fire them and so on. And I was like, what? We then went to HR and I was a bit belligerent in the room because I just felt that I had been wrong. But as I sat there listening to this individual, something struck me because I had seen similar characteristics in family members. And that's when I realized that there's something else going on here. And I actually calmed down because I realized I was not the victim anymore in that room. I was just a participant. What was happening in that room was an eye opener for me. Here was an individual that was having severe strain created by some things that were going on in his mind. And at that point, I promised myself, I want to be more empathetic. I want to be understanding. So I actually went and I actually started investigating and understanding how do I pick up these cues. At
Yeah.
that point, those cues were not for my use. They were more cues for me to become a better person and a better manager when dealing with people. So in the work environment, when the concept of writing for this book came up, I immediately said, you know what, I'm going to take two perspectives. Perspective number one, Andrew, is I want to talk about leaders and what they need to do for mental health for themselves.
Mhm.
Then I flipped the chapter to say, and by the way, because you have got this title leader, because you have great followers, you owe them two things. One is create an environment that is psychological safe, brings out the best in them. And two, look for signs. People are not going to walk up to you and tell you that, oh, I'm feeling down today, I'm feeling burnt out today, because these are all labels, right? You
Yeah.
need to be, as a senior exec, you need to look around and ask yourself, this person who has always contributed in a conversation is very quiet today. They are not focused today. What's going on? Make that extra leap to ask question and change your one-on-one conversations to reflect that also. So I'm just going to pause there because I just want to make sure you get what you're looking for and we get more pointed as well along the
Oh
way.
yeah, no, absolutely. And as you know, I kind of want to think about, how are you going, how does a business implement some of these things internally? I mean, what are some of the things that you suggest? Because they say, well, that sounds all wonderful, but our culture is old. It's something that's been around for a long time. How are we going to be able to make this shift and make it
Yeah.
work across everybody?
So yeah, it's an interesting question, and the answer is pretty simple actually. A lot of managers look at this type of conversation and one argue that, hey, wait, first of all, isn't this a sensitive topic? Do we even need to be talking about it, Andrew? Right? And my response is, it's a sensitive topic, yes. We need to be talking about it in non-specifics in any case. Are we taking names? We're not. So don't be shy about that. Your problem starts when you start talking about Andrew's situation specifically with other individuals. So what most corporations have done, which I really applaud them for, and I've worked for some of the best organizations on the planet. 20 years ago, there was a massive stigma to mental health. If you were
Yes.
feeling something going on, your boss would actually tell you, keep your home issues at home and bring your professional self to the office. And even then I knew something was not right with that. How is that possible? Because my personality or my persona at work should be the same at home also, right? If I have
Mm,
challenges at home, how do I compartmentalize and keep that back at home? I can't do that. So where did this notion come from that you can separate these two lives? And that's also one of the genesis for why you have this work-life balance or imbalance, as I call it. Because
mm,
people were ingrained, people were taught that the hustle is cool, burn the candle from both ends. There's no issue with that. Now to your question, organizations have actually figured it out. They've actually done a fantastic job around what I call employee assistance programs, EAPs,
yeah.
wellness programs. A lot of organizations actually will give to their employees an amazing way to actually reach out and get counseling and get some guidance when they feel that things are going wrong. Here's the reality though. Most organizations have done a fantastic job of building this infrastructure which preserves anonymity. But here's the reality. Who is that person that can actually determine whether you're actually having a challenge or a problem? It's the person that works with you on a daily basis, your coworker, and if
Mm,
not your coworker or your friend at home. And I remember we talking about the corporate world in the work context, not home context. Of course, you got your parents, you got your wife. She's going to tell you you're off, something is up. But at work, it's actually a manager also. Your co-workers are going to be very candid with you, but your manager is going to actually call you out and should call you out. And what's up? Tell me more. So organizations have done a fantastic job of empowering the entire setup and the infrastructure and acknowledging that there is something. So they've removed the stigma. I think they need to do more in empowering and giving power to these managers who need to actually have the courage and the ability to change their
yeah.
one-on-ones, to change this entire conversation to actually say, talk to me about you first. And I first got a taste of this from an amazing manager that I reported to. And Eves, and is actually a French national, and he always had a style of functioning which I really adored. And I recommend this to everyone since you asked for exact specific tips. What can an organization do? And when I say organization, I'm talking about the leader. You are a manager, you have an obligation. Being a people manager or a leader it's not a right, it's a privilege. And when you get that privilege, you need to be cautious how you deal with people. Your job is to elevate people, not break them down.
Yeah.
People still think that screaming, shouting, or breaking down or belittling is actually an attribute of a manager. It's actually an attribute of a miserable human being, to be honest with you. Now, as a manager, you are now going to change the context of how you act and behave. And what Yves did for me was very simple. He would have a one-on-one, and this is how he would start. Tell me what's happening in your life. And if I spoke about work, he would scream at me. He says, no, tell me what's happening in your life. And I'm like, your personal life. How are the kids? What's up? Anything interesting you did that you want to talk about? And then he would force me to connect the dots back to work. He always believed that that personal element bleeds in. He wanted to know more. He wanted to understand from me that I, in my job, have a role. I get that. But Deepak, you also have an identity. And what is that identity telling you? And sometimes that identity goes down. But when your identity is down, Andrew, and I ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your identity? People say 5. On a scale of 1 to 10 on the role, where are you? People say 5. And my question to them is, I think you're mixing things up. Your identity always remains a 10. And if you pound that into your head, you'll understand what's going on. So managers who actually understand that the role of a person and his identity are separate, and if they see a flaw or something going wrong, the identity need to jump in. Typical managers will jump in and say, in your role, you did this task wrong and you can do this better.
Yeah.
In your role, I need you to talk less and I need you to work harder so we can promote you. I need you to do A, I need you to do this training, I need you to do that. But when you talk about identity, you're actually now taking an interest in this individual. And it's an investment. I look at it this way. If you've got 10 people reporting to you and you put time to nurturing all 10, and if you can figure out those two rock stars, one that you keep and one maybe you export elsewhere in the organization, that means that 20% of your talent is going to be the next level of managers or execs in the organization. I think there's a lot of ROI in that from just
Oh,
changing
there's
your
a lot.
approach.
Yeah.
And longevity. We live in a world where when I met people and I tell them that I worked for a company for 11 years, they look at me in shock. And I'm like, I thought that was the norm. But no, today I think when I interview people, if you're under 30, you usually have rotated through 3 or 4 organizations already. Andrew, the longevity comes from being a solid manager and actually helping people. You change your one-on-ones to being more personal, more engaging. You talk about what is in here, which is bleeding into your behavior. How can I help you?
Yeah.
What support do you need? Simple things. I noticed that you've been a bit flustered lately and you've been pretty harsh with some of your colleagues. What's up? And you'll
Mhm.
be surprised to learn that he has something on his mind or that he's not able to cope with his workload. Let's figure that out. So you got to dig in and not be. So I just love it when a manager tells me, um, I know you want to get promoted. You've said that many times. I'm working on it. And then the next year, the same thing. And the third year, the same thing. At some point, you're going to say, does he really even mean it? You got to. And the same thing with mental health. If you really open your mouth and you tell people that you want to help them, you better mean it because people will see through you very quickly. And that's the best way to then lose that opportunity. Best way. So when you are hard as a manager and you hold people accountable, people absolutely understand that. But when you ask all the right things, but you don't follow through by any changes in your own behavior and how you work with them, then people know you're just saying things for the sake of saying things. So
Yeah.
my caution to people is that if you decide to get into change your one-on-ones and to change your attitude and behavior, allow people to talk freely, then be aware. Hold yourself accountable to also change to be better human beings. That's why I always say, as a leader, think about your mental health first. Change your own schedule. If you're the guy working till 10 o'clock every night and back in the office at 4 a.m. in the morning, and then you tell the others to chill and relax, it ain't gonna happen. You need to be the role model and the leader. And that means that you also need to change the way that you operate because when people look at you, they need to see a leader who leads by example, leads by principle, and therefore they will listen to you. I'm going to
Yeah.
pause there, Andrew.
Oh yeah,
Very
no,
broad.
that is so much. One of the things that you just said that just stood out so much to me is like a bang was the idea of approaching your workforce and saying, "Let me help you so that I can promote you, or do the best so that I can promote you." Where I feel like so many businesses are in the position of do your work so that you just keep your job. And that's the mentality that a lot, and that brings stress. That brings so much stress. What do you feel, and we're kind of starting to wrap up a little bit here, what do you feel is the greatest mental health challenge that's going on in the workplace right now?
People don't even know that they have mental health challenges. I kid you not. I
Mhm.
speak to people, and if you go to someone and say, what mental challenges do you have, or what mental health issues do you have? People look at me funny because they don't know. Step number one is actually educate the people. What do you mean by mental health? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, I would love for people to actually create scenarios. You do these compliance trainings, Andrew, where they tell you that if your wife works for the company, then you need to declare it. Or if you have got a friend who you're going to buy from, then you need to declare it. And we have these scenarios that an employee A is talking to employee B, and employee A shares this information, and you can't do that, and you can't pass that information because you've got personal data in it. We do those trainings. Where's the training that says, here's a scenario? Here is Andy. Andy is working with a colleague, Neil, and this is what he feels Neil is going through. Neil has now been sitting there biting his nails. Neil is very nervous. Neil is getting flustered. Neil breaks out in cold sweats. Neil is not able to sleep. Hey, wait a minute. Everything I just said in that scenario tells you that Neil has got something going on. Now, if you go to Neil and ask him, Neil, do you struggle with mental health issues? He's going to tell you, what are you talking about? Because burnout is not considered to be a mental health issue. Lack of sleep is not considered to be a mental health issue.
Oh man.
It's considered to be the hustle. Dude, it's the price you pay. I got to pay the school fees, right? Come on.
Uh,
And if I don't work hard, how am I going to get that Mercedes Benz? And I'm like, I hear you. I hear you. But we're mixing two things up here. Outcomes is awesome. How you get to the outcomes is where I'm asking people to change. Figure out that balance. And look, I can be honest with you. In my own journey with mental health, I was told to journal. I hate journaling, but it's a powerful tool. So I'm
yeah,
very
it is.
cautious with people. I said, when you hear someone telling you something, don't jump to conclusions to it. That's one simple advice. So don't ask someone, do you have mental health issues? Ask different questions. And some of those questions that, I can only think about is that, tell me about your feelings or thoughts. And there was a simple checklist that I actually had, is there anything that's interfering in your life and stopping you from be functioning better? You want to talk about that a bit more? Is it something that prevents you from doing the things you want to do? Is it workload? Is it what people think of you? Is it the fact that you don't want to do something because of what people would say? Ask it those questions. Then is it you or is it someone else that making it difficult for you to break out so that you are more present in all aspects of your life? That's the simple questions to ask yourself. Now take those and you can frame them as a manager to the person as well. What were the two instances last week where, Andrew, you felt that you did not interact very well with either a customer or with a colleague because you just felt that you were not being understood? And I think you might have said or done something that upset them or upset you. Can you think of any scenario like that? It just changes the context. Instead of
Right.
asking, do you have any mental health issues? Because, oh my gosh, that's like asking someone, have you been faithful in your marriage? Why even
Yeah.
asking? Why should I even answer that? I don't want to answer that question. So it's just changing the context. And two, vulnerability. Those managers that have got the best out from their employees are the ones that actually acknowledge their own failures, acknowledge where they are struggling, and actually share openly and candidly what they have done to change their lives. Because if you can change your life, shit, I think you can change mine. And that's when that alignment occurs. And people look at vulnerability and assume that, hey, since I'm an exec, I got to always be Mr. Goody Shoes, right? Needs to have an answer for everything. No, 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 no. You don't need to have an answer for everything. As a child, you had a childlike curiosity. You asked to ask a lot of questions. Your parents enjoyed teaching you. You grew up and you've actually got all these notions and ideas in your mind, which actually stop you from listening to other people because you already know the answers, right? And sometimes we mix up that journey and the fact that we're in a hierarchy. Now, I'm not asking everyone to forget the democratic process. You don't need to let decisions slide. As an exec, you're expected to make your budget, you're expected to make your numbers. Do that. It's the how you do it, where you focus, and the type of language that you do, which allows people to feel safe, allows people to express themselves, and then allows you to help them become better and use the company resources. A manager's biggest job is actually to point to. If I could, whenever I see someone struggling, all I have to do is actually pick up a sign that has an arrow pointing towards the internet, pointing to a link, pointing to a guide, pointing to a phone. Those resources are there. As a manager, make sure that you are telling people how to use the resources given to them. It's an
Yeah.
absolute pity when people don't realize. No one wants to pay taxes, Andrew, right? But everyone wants to use the
Somebody missed that
resources.
word.
Everyone wants the resources. It's one of those dilemmas
Yeah.
here. We actually have the resources, but no one wants to admit that they have a mental health issue.
Yep.
So make it anonymous, make it quick, make it easy. Don't have people making 4 calls and making applications and having applications reviewed by 20 people. Keep it simple, keep it quiet, make it, and it's a safe zone. Any coach will tell you. If I am talking to Andrew, my reportee, and Deepak is the manager, what I discuss with you is in a safe zone. It cannot be leaked out. So once you people realize that you actually honor and trust that relationship, you're gonna you will learn a lot of things. I get one thing told to me all the time, Andrew. Deepak, I disagree. What if people start talking about the fact that they are doing something which is disgusting and I don't want to know about that? And I'm like, I don't know what you're thinking, but I've not had a situation like that. I've had people discussing their very intimate thoughts with me, yes, but only because it was bothering them. And I tell them very clearly, hey, I hear that. I can't guide you on that. I'm not a certified therapist. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a psychologist. I'm actually not even a friend. I'm your manager who really genuinely cares how you work and optimize yourself at work. And I would like to be the person that when we go out for dinner, you and I have fun and we don't need to talk about business all the time. So direct them also to resources. I've had many situations where I've had people telling me that I believe my husband is seeing someone behind my back. I don't want to gossip on that topic. It's a sensitive topic, Andrew,
Yeah.
right? So you absolutely make it clear. I respect what you're saying, but I cannot comment on that. No, I think it's my place to comment on that. However, here's something you can do and reach out to. And by the way, every good manager needs to know those resources. You'll be surprised how many resources are there, but managers don't know it. You know what a manager does, Andrew? Call HR. They'll help you. Uh-uh. You cannot. You cannot. It's like a rich person telling me I pay $50,000 in tuition fees for my son in school, and it's the school's responsibility to educate my child. No, it's not. No, it's not. You cannot outsource your obligations to raise your own
Right.
child or his education because you're paying $50,000 to some very academy out there. You chose to do that because you could afford it. But you need to demand excellence of yourself, of your child, and not just only the school because you paid someone to do it. It's the same scenario. You're a manager, but because you have an HR function, do not outsource your obligation to your individual. And when people see you own it, they'll love you for it. And that's when true followership occurs. I'm going to pause again, sir. You can see I just love this subject. I can keep talking.
Oh, I know. I mean, we could just let you go for like hours, and I think we're going to get a lot of great information. But let's put a pin in it there, so that there's something for everybody to get in contact with you to explore. So, I mean, Deepak, how can our audience find out more about you and dive even deeper than we've gone right now?
Very easy. LinkedIn is one of those tools, and I'm there. And you just pick up my name, you will find me. There are at least 7 Deepak Bhutras that I'm aware of on LinkedIn, Andrew, but you will pick up mine. Mine's pretty simple. I'm the only Deepak Bhutra who got that LinkedIn URL very early, and that's the fun of being old, right? LinkedIn emails, etc.
One of the few things, but yeah.
You know, the few things, hey, reach out to me. I am on Facebook as well. You'll find me. It's straightforward. Just look for the bald head on any smiling photograph. That's me. And then take it from there. I receive a lot of outreach all the time, Andrew. And because I'm candid and I tell people the challenges I have faced, I am a coach. I spend a lot of time with people listening, talking, Andrew, understanding. And I learn as much as about mental health every day. I'm surprised how it manifests, where it comes up, and people that think that they're experts are actually not. We're all on a journey. It's like artificial intelligence. Every day someone tells me I'm a 10 out of 10 in my knowledge, I laugh because 2 months later you're going to be 5 out of 10 because something new will happen. Same thing with mental health. We think we have figured it all out. We haven't. I watch doctors struggle with it. I watch medication being prescribed. I've seen people having 4 different types of medication in one year. That tells you that even science is still trying to figure out what's going on. But at the end of the day, just keep your antenna, your radar up, Mr. Leader. Focus on yourself first. When that airplane is crashing and you need to help someone, you first put the mask on your face, make sure that your mental health is secure, become a role model, and then turn to help the rest of the passengers. And those passengers are going to become your followers because they see that you are genuinely taking care of yourself and now focus on them. And that was, in summary, what my chapter was about.
Yeah.
Start with self and then switch the gear to your people. And trust me, you figure that mental health element out, rest will follow. Because I can guarantee you, bad mental health will eat your strategy for breakfast. You can take my quote and change it because it's actually structure, strategy, break, eat structure for, or culture, eat strategy for breakfast. I'm telling you, it's also mental health. All your ambition is going to fall flat if your people are not 100% aligned. And from a statistics point of view, Andrew, people tell me, how big is this issue? Let me put it to you in very simple terms. 75% of people in the workforce are perpetually stressed. The other 25% are just narcissists or psychopaths. Two. Of that 75%, there are actually a very large percentage, and I would actually say nearly 33%, a third of those people actually need external guidance and counseling beyond what a manager can do. And there's, believe it or not, 2 to 3% of those 100 people who actually need literally serious assistance, serious support in terms of medication, and most likely should not be in a work environment because they've actually got serious issues. But everyone is out there doing the hustle. Everyone's got this smile on their face. Everyone is, that's what bosses are like. So I got to just tolerate it. Or everyone's either praying that they get hit by a bus or they pray that their boss gets hit by a bus. That's not a solution to anything.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It isn't. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Deepak Bhootra, he is featured in Leadership DNA. As we said, go ahead and, as we've said, go ahead and pick that up. And yeah, Deepak, we're going to have you on again because I think there's even more that we can deep dive into. But I really thank you so much for being
My
here.
pleasure, absolutely.
Very insightful episodes. One of my favorites already, I can tell.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that validation, I bid you adieu, Andrew. You take care.
Same.